Hey guys, it's me again with some more modern on budget. Now today we're gonna go with we're gonna go a bit more on the edge of what we can and can't do in budget. Now this deck, this is Boros Ponza, and a large part of it is based on a combo between one of your lands and your non-land card, but we had to remove the land because it was too expensive. So we do have something else in its place that will do its job. So we're gonna just test it out, okay? This deck, I've tested it. It works wonders. The card we had to cut though was Flagstones of Trocaire, and that was just the playset of Flagstones would have been our entire budget. But the combo is with Boom to Bust. So I decided we might go a bit lower on Boom to Bust, and go up in other places. And it was just so that you could destroy your land and then get profit off of it. But I'm going to move on to the point of the deck. So, Boros Ponza, if you don't know what Ponza means, Ponza is a land destruction archetype. It's basically if you were to, say, take mass land destruction, but lower the land destruction a little bit and add in interaction with your opponent. For example, removal. So, you're going to see the land destruction cards such as Molten Rain, destroy target land if it was non-basic, deals damage to them. Pillage, destroy target artifact or land. Or Stone Rain, destroy target land. Now, we have 12 land destruction cards in our deck, plus Boom to Bust, which also says destroy target land you control and target land you don't control. But also says 6 mana to destroy all lands. You're not busting, you're just booming. And so we have a total of 15 land destruction cards in the deck. And to back that up a bit, because those are all 3-drops, or Boom is a 2-drop, but these are all 3-drops over here. So to back that up, we do have Lightning Bolt as a source of removal, but if the battlefield is maintained, it can be used to deal some extra damage where you need it. Mana Tithe is a counterspell in white. If the game gets too long, then it might... you might think, oh, this is going to be an inconvenient... It's just going to be an inconvenient draw because they'll pay it anyway. But you have 15 land destruction cards. Mana Tithe is crazy for that. Oust. Put target creature onto its owner's library, second from the top. Its controller gains 3 life. This can be really nice against Death Shadow decks, where you bounce it to their deck, and then they gain life, possibly killing their other Death Shadows, or lowering it significantly. But another big use of this, because if it was just for Death Shadow, I'd side it. But what you can also do is, if you're at the point where you're drawing land destruction cards, but they cast something, you can destroy their lands and bounce their creature to their deck, and then they won't be able to recast it because they won't have the lands. So then you have Molten Rain, but a hard thing that you might think to deal with this deck is something like Aether Vial, but Pillage just happens to destroy an artifact or a land. So if you really need to, you can destroy Aether Vials. Boom to Dust. I keep saying to dust, but Boom to Bust. Destroy target land you control and target land you don't control. It synergizes with Cascading Cataracts in our land because it's an indestructible land. It eventually can tap for any color, but you have so much filtering with the rest of your deck that you don't really need it. But that's just a way that we can target our own land and then target their land. And quite often, we will be far enough ahead of them in the terms of lands that we can just boom a normal land if we need to. If we have 5 lands and they have 2, and we cast boom, I don't care if I go to 4 lands if they're at 1 land, because I'll still be at 4 lands. So that's for boom. And then Valakut Awakening can be a land if we need it, but it can also be... This is one of the reasons why we don't necessarily want to be playing... if we keep drawing lands, we might not want to just keep playing them. If we keep drawing lands, maybe just hold on to them and eventually draw a Valakut Awakening and put all of them back into your deck and draw new cards. But Valakut Awakening is just a way to filter through our deck, to toss away dead cards, and possibly even just be a land if we need it. Suppression Field and Ghostly Prison are both in here for the same exact reason. So Suppression Field, activate abilities cost 2 more to pay, unless they're mana abilities, which, if you don't know, is an ability that produces mana, not something that costs mana. So a mana ability could be something like activating a Planeswalker. Not a mana ability, an activate ability. But a mana ability could be something like Elvish Mystic. So that will make them cost 2 more to cast. Ghostly Prison says creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. Now, the reason these are in the deck, and it's the same exact reason, is if we're destroying all their lands, they can't pay that extra. So they won't be able to do that. So that's a way we can just hold off our opponent's forces. If they're just going super wide, it holds them off anyway. But then when we hit our land destruction cards, which we have 15 of again, it's gonna be a way where we can just halt them, just stop them. Now, you will notice that we have 4 creatures in the deck. We have 2 Goblin Dark Dwellers and 2 Magus of Tabernacle. Magus of Tabernacle says all creatures have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this unless you pay 1. So that's going to be in there for the same reason as Ghostly Prison and Suppression Field. It's going to severely limit what you can do. And so it's not necessarily always my upkeep. If it's my opponent's upkeep, they have to sacrifice it. Unless they can pay that 1. Which severely limits what they can do on their turn. Then Goblin Dark Dwellers says it's a menace creature. When it enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into the graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So it's a free cast Torrential Gear Hulk, but also hit sorceries, but for 3 or less. And the reason why this is in here is to get extra use out of your removal, possibly, but really, we cap out at 3 mana. So we can recast Molten Rain, recast Pillage, recast Stone Rain, anything in this spell section right here is castable by Goblin Dark Dwellers. Anyway, so that is the non-creature portion of the deck, non-land portion of the deck. Then we have 4 Battlefield Forge. The pain lands don't really hurt us at all. Indestructible Land, Fast Land, Mountain, a bit of utility, giving us dual lands, but also giving us an extra thing to attack with. It does have double strike. Be careful though, because it can be killed by things like Lava Dart, and it can be killed by Gut Shot. Then Temple of Triumph, since we really can play a slower game here. So this is to filter our draws, but it's also a 50-cent dual land. And if we're playing budget, the temples are amazing. And we're not an aggro deck, so we really don't need... we have Inspiring Vantages, but we don't need them. Tormod's Crypt in the sideboard for graveyard hate. Flame Slash for extra creature removal. This actually hits things like Omnath, where Lightning Bolt doesn't. Core Firewalker is protection from red, so any deck like that I would bring this in against Storm, against Burn, and probably also against other red decks, like possibly even Death Shadow. And if you happen to be going against another Ponza deck, it's not horrible. Rest in Peace, it's for more graveyard hate. Roiling Vortex is for control hate, so you can stick it out and you can play the longer game. Likelihood is if you go against a control deck, they're playing a more painful mana base than you, so you can probably go longer. It also says that you can stop your opponent from gaining life, and also if no mana is spent to cast a spell, deal 5 damage to the player. Be careful about using Dark Dwellers with Roiling Vortex. But other than that, there's Skullcrack for some extra damage to your opponent in case part of your deck is not useful. It's not necessarily for a specific matchup, but it is definitely for, okay, let's say we're going against a control deck and Oust will not be useful. I'll just bring the Skullcracks for extra damage. It's kind of like how some control decks will have. I used to run a Chemister's Insight in my sideboard, so I could just bring it in and take out a card that was just a dead card. So you don't necessarily have to sideboard to hate your opponent. Just take stuff out that would be useless against them. Next up is Smash to Smithereens for some artifact hate. There's really not a ton that you are worried about in that aspect, but you just have it in here in case, and sometimes dealing that extra 3 damage, even if there's not an artifact you really worry about, even just if they play artifacts, maybe take out Oust, Spring, and Smash. It's huge. Anyway, that is the deck. That's Boros Ponza. It's land destruction mixed with burn, and I really hope that you enjoyed this. If you have any questions on it, ask below. The win condition is you might think is kind of weird, but really you eventually just swing in with Goblin Dark Dwellers or swing in with Needle Spires. But if you wonder how the deck works beyond what I've told you, go ahead and drop a comment below. If you liked it, please let me know, and I will see you next time.